It's no closing chapter meeting each other halfway ending chapter offbeat steps under the moonlight addendum the return re-zero starting life in another world volume 15 tap. Nagatsuki illustration, Shinichiro Otsuka New York contents cover insert title page copyright chapter 1, the final day of Roswell Manor chapter 2, happiness reflected upon the water's surface chapter 3, guilty raw, Black King of the Forest, strikes. Chapter 4, next time, I'm sure we'll have tea chapter 5, love you down to your blood and guts chapter 6, it started with revenge chapter 7, pick me chapter 8, faces fashion pro. Meeting each other halfway ending chapter, offbeat steps under the moonlight addendum, the return afterward yen newsletter chapter 1 the final day of Roswell Manor 1 even now, recalling that moment, she found herself stricken with regret. The fingers she had extended were brushed away, even as she lovingly called out the girl's name. The girl's parting words were caring. There was happiness, as well as determination, in those tearful eyes of hers, seeing that, her voice died in her throat. Even now, she couldn't remember what went through her mind back then. Even now, she didn't know what she should have said. Even now, she had no answer to the question what should I have done differently. That was why, even now, she was alone, cowering in the archive of forbidden books, unable to leave. Ryazu. The fragment of an old memory from the far reaches of her mind made that word spill from her lips. She had spent those empty and stagnant months and years the same way, averting her eyes from that painful past. Why now, of all times, had she remembered that regret, that memory, that girl's name? The most likely explanation was her premonition. A premonition that was much like how she had been refused long ago. One golden Agato MP4 directs.com I'm getting you out of here, Beatrice this time, my hand's gonna lead you right out under the big OL sun, and we'll play around until that dress is totally black from mud. Though this time, it was her turn to brush aside the offered hand. The battle only continued to grow fiercer. The refined solace of the mansion was utterly shattered by the destructive powers at work. In the wake of a roar, steel met steel. A dance of sparks punctuated the ringing echo. Moonlight beamed into Roswell Manor, the stage where the waltz was reaching its climax. Marvelous. You are truly marvelous. Just stunning. One impact shattered a window. Another cracked the floor. The aftershocks shredded a painting on the wall. The sultry voice that reached the ears of the ferocious golden beast seemed utterly amused by the mortal combat that was unfolding. T ain't happy hearing praise from anyone but Ram. Blotting out the lovely voice with an angry cry, Garfield threw his mighty fist, which sailed over the head of his foe and punched through the wall behind her. The woman tried to use the opportunity to slip into his blind spot until he came at her again with a lethal follow-up. His arm ripped through the wall he had punched clean through, bringing a whole chunk of it with him. Seeing the incoming attack boasting a surface area 100 times larger than a fist, the woman Elsa let out an aroused sigh of admiration. The next instant was so crucial to the outcome of this battle that even blinking would have been fatal. As Garfield's attack lacked any openings, much like the wall he was wielding, instead of trying to fall back, Elsa opted to press forward. With superhuman agility, she minimized the damage she sustained as her black 2 golden Agato MP4 directs.com blade flitted toward his neck. A blow with the force of a gale sent Elsa flying back. However, she was certain that in the exchange, her blade had reached Marvelous. Pros FRMMUDNNTMKEMEHPPY, Dumni. Elsa murmured in wonder as she remained crouched, one hand on the floor. It took only one look to realize that Garfield had caught her cookery with his fangs. He shattered the arrested blade with one bite and spat out what was left. From the first exchange, he knew this woman was someone he couldn't afford to be careless with. Faced with an opponent so powerful that normal methods were useless, Garfield glanced over his shoulder and behind him. There, standing stiffly while observing the clash between the pair, was a woman with jade eyes. Frederica. "Hey, sis. What are ya doin', just staring at me like that? Eh? Ah, well, I had not intended on, sorry, but it really don't look like I'm gonna have time to show off. The general put me in charge of keepin' you safe, so please. Garfield chomped his fangs as he called to his hesitant sister. However, Frederica's reactions were dull, and her legs remained motionless, though it was no fault of hers. The battle between Garfield and Elsa had reached a level that left Frederica unable to intervene. Assistance was out of the question, simply moving required courage. That being the case, it's time to show what a good little brother I am. Garf. Seeing Frederica hadn't moved, Garfield decided to act first. When he ferociously leaped toward his foe, Elsa smiled charmingly, already knowing what he intended to do. Thinking of your sister at a time like this? What a kind boy. As she spoke, the killer parried a bestial claw with her knife and leaped backward, clearing a great distance. Garfield followed after her, shifting the battlefield to somewhere deeper in the mansion. This cleared the path to the sleeping Princess Rem. If Frederica took Rem with her and left while her brother kept the enemy 3 Golden Agato MP4 Directs.com occupied, then there was nothing to fear. Garflo, as he rained a flurry of punches, a clear, unwavering voice called out to him from behind. There was no time to look back, but his sister had only one thing to say to her little brother, whose back had grown far wider than the one in her memories: "T believe in you." It was a reunion of mere minutes after 10 years apart. But it was enough. She trusted in her little brother's strength, and he was determined to live up to his older sister's expectations. That was all they needed. Damn right you do. His strength surged as a fire roared to life in his belly. Elsa twisted her body to dodge a swing of his bestial claws, but she was too slow. Garfield snagged her black braid and slammed her into a wall before proceeding to race down the corridor with her. Boah! Roaring, Garfield charged straight into the mansion, with Elsa still pinned against the wall. Dust and debris flew from the wall as it broke, leaving her unable to resist the heavy impacts. All he had to do now was snap her neck, cave in her skull, and grind her against the wall until she was reduced to paste. Then he'd regroup with his friends and letting your mind wander in the middle of our dance. What a naughty boy. Faster than his mind could think, he miraculously flinched away out of sheer instinct. A moment later, what should have been a direct hit grazed his left ear instead. Now off balance, Garfield completely lost his footing. In fact, the floor itself was missing. He fell right through the gaping hole that Elsa's swing had produced. The slicing attacks kept coming even as he entered a free fall. Garfield relied purely on intuition to deflect them with the shield strapped to both his arms. Defense, defense, defense. Ultimately, he couldn't intercept every strike. Blood flowed freely from fresh wounds that appeared all over him. The moment he made contact with the floor below, Garfield rolled away to escape the zone of death. He rose from the carpet on all fours while glaring straight ahead. A white cloud of dust parted to reveal his opponent, as though for Golden Agato MP4 Directs.com she stood atop a moonlit stage. The beautiful assassin smiled, gripping her kukri with both hands. Her upper body was smeared with blood. Looks like Sis is on her way. The rest is up to the general. Sensing the presence still on the floor above had already set off, Garfield sighed in relief at the completion of his first objective. According to Subaru's plan, the remaining objectives were... Wait, what were they again? Aw, crap. I can't remember. Oh well. No doubt there was a backup plan in case Garfield didn't win, a plan for keeping everyone alive as they sought shelter in the sanctuary. That didn't matter, though. It was fine even if he forgot. As long as he won, there was no need to remember that plan. With that final thought, he slammed both his shields together in front of him. Garfield steeled himself with the clamor of metal scraping against metal. Elsa licked her lips at the sight. __Flosagram Hilda, the Bowel Hunter. Garfield Tinsel, the Sanctuary's ultra-strong shield. The assassin's blue-dread smile melted into the darkness right as she started freely bounding in all directions, awaiting his pursuit. Just before they collided, Garfield crinkled his nose, bared his fangs, and howled, "This is one hell of a first battle, General, so ya better hold up your end." 3. Just how many times had he visited this oh-so-familiar room to meet her like this? The first time they'd met was in the evening of the day Subaru had first arrived at Roswell Manor. He had no trouble breaking through the illusion she'd cast on the hallway with ease, setting foot into this very same archive of forbidden books. There was little doubt that both of them had made the worst impressions imaginable during their first encounter. 5. Goldenagato MP4Directs.com. After she robbed his still recovering body of mana, Subaru went down without even putting up a fight. Burning with the need for revenge, he later went on to prod and annoy her at every opportunity, continuously interfering with her alone time. He spent 2 months at Roswell Manor like this. During that time, Subaru and the girl Beatrice argued and fought on numerous occasions, getting along rather childishly. When they saw each other, a commotion was bound to occur. Yet, curiously, their likes and tastes matched in the strangest and most unexpected of ways. Why? Somehow, it constantly bothered Subaru that she seemed alone. Even now, he thought of those days and the time they'd spent together as something irreplaceable that bonded them together. Subaru had returned to see Beatrice once more, and this time, he would never, ever let go of her again. "You want to take Betty away from this place?" Bewildered, Beatrice repeated the declaration Subaru had made upon entering the room. Still seated on the stool in its customary position, she hugged the black book to her chest all the tighter. She clutched the book of knowledge entrusted to her by her mother, its pages of prophecy blank. "Is that any of your business, I wonder? No one asked you to do such a thing. I figured you'd say that, but I don't have time for a long debate. I'm bringing you out of here with me one way or another." What a self-serving. Would you leave this instant, I wonder? Leave and have a good cry on that girl's lap? You trying to start a fight? You keep that up, and it's gonna be. Subaru's lips trembled in shame as she brought up memories of him making a fool of himself. If anything, Emilia's lap pillows were an enormous blessing, but he couldn't rely on her at the moment. Emilia was currently giving her all in the sanctuary. It was Subaru's job to do the same at the mansion. Anyway, there's no time for chit-chat. You know what's going on. 6. Goldenagato MP4Directs.com. Outside, don't you? Understand there are intruders in the mansion, I suppose. Still, why should Betty get involved in this dispute? Anyone who wishes to scuffle in the dirt should do as they please. Unfortunately, the situation isn't friendly enough to be called a scuffle. I left the fight against tough enemy number 1 to a promising newcomer, but he's too much of a softie. Shaking his head at Beatrice's words, Subaru racked his brain as he mulled over how their allies had been deployed throughout the estate. The greatest asset they had, Garfield, was almost certainly already engaging the main threat, Elsa. Both possessed superhuman strength, so they could be considered evenly matched, or at least, Subaru hoped so. He couldn't be certain. It was less that Garfield was too soft and more that he was incredibly kind-hearted. That was the proper way to express it. Subaru and company had strategically relied on that kindness to defeat him during their confrontation at the sanctuary. How his deeply emotional personality would influence the current combat situation at the manor was anyone's guess. Subaru couldn't dismiss the possibility that Garfield would, instead of pitying his opponent, be so concerned for his allies that it'd end up dulling his claws and fangs. To get everyone in the mansion out safe and sound, Garfield had to be in peak fighting condition to draw off their powerful foe. Basically, that means I have to eliminate any obstacles that get in the way of our lethal weapon so he can go all out. I've left Petra in Otto's hands, and I'm relying on Frederica to secure Rem, so that leaves just you and Betty. Is that what you are trying to say, Wonder? Yep, that's pretty much it. If there was nothing holding him back, Garfield could unleash his full power. That was why the top priority was getting Petra and the others out of the mansion first. He was sure Frederica would secure Rem and meet back up with everyone else in short order. And the last piece of the puzzle is me getting you out of here. If you don't want to run hand in hand, I'll carry you in my arms or on my back. 7 Golden Agato MP4 Directs.com, whatever you like. Just so we're clear, I'm not budging on this. Don't make me repeat myself. Is your help even necessary, I wonder? When Subaru tried to take one step closer, Beatrice refused him in a low voice. She swiveled her head about, as if meaning to address the room instead of Subaru. Betty is in control of the Great Spirit's archive of forbidden books, a place isolated from the fleeting outside world. No matter what menace lies beyond those doors, does it even matter, wonder? Your concern is unnecessary. Nah, I can't let this slide. Your archive of forbidden books is awesome, alright. No argument there. But it's got a fatal flaw. More importantly, the other side knows exactly how to beat it. This critique of her passage ability, the foundation of her confidence, made Beatrice raise her eyebrows with displeasure. Certainly, when it came to staying hidden, the archive of forbidden books offered countless advantages. However, Subaru had seen for himself on previous runs that these advantages were not absolute. Your passage is only effective on closed doors. If someone opens all the doors in the mansion, the last one would lead straight into the archive of forbidden books without fail. In a prior run, Elsa had used that method to trespass upon the archive, attacking Beatrice in an attempt to take her life. The archive wasn't safe. He was doing his best to explain, but why does the enemy know of this weakness, I wonder? Beatrice's question made Subaru catch his breath. Roswaal told them, that must be how they know. She'd arrived at the conclusion so quickly that Subaru had no chance to offer up any excuse. He could only gaze in astonishment as Beatrice's certainty deepened. The assailants had come to the mansion on Roswaal's instructions, and it was necessary to defeat Beatrice's passage in order to achieve their goals. Roswaal must have had a reason for why that had to come to pass. In other words, is Betty's death recorded in Roswaal's Book of Knowledge, I wonder? After voicing that musing, Beatrice briefly let out a breath. 8 Golden Agato MP4 Directs.com Phew. Like a spontaneous sigh of relief. The sight sent Subaru into a fit of rage. You. What was that sigh just now? Why do you look like you're okay with all this? If you have come this far, surely you understand. Roswaal is simply upholding what is written in the Book of Knowledge, I suppose. If this is the result, Betty's fate is already sealed. What the hell are you? Roswaal's book is his, and your book is yours, right? Or are you telling me that book you're hugging says at some point he's going to have you killed? Subaru jabbed a finger toward the Book of Knowledge, which Beatrice clutched as if hoping to shatter her resignation. The truth was that he already knew Beatrice's mystic tome was empty. Not once in 4 centuries' time had any prophecies of the future appeared within its pages. When Subaru shouted at her, Beatrice cast her gaze downward and slowly opened the book in her arms. Then she turned its contents toward him, revealing there was indeed nothing written inside. There isn't anything in here, I suppose. Betty's fate is a blank page. Then that means you don't have any reason to let Roswaal have his way. You should decide what you want to do for yourself the way you always have. Asterisk, the way I always have. Beatrice's eyes went wide, blinking as she softly repeated those words. Her voice, sounding as if it was devoid of all emotion, left Subaru speechless. However, those blue eyes of hers glinted with something unmistakable, a cavernous sorrow. Just what did Betty decide on for herself in all those days? As she murmured, Beatrice meticulously turned the pages of the tome with her slender fingers, as if she thought those pristine pages represented the sum total of the long years she had spent blank and empty. Have continued to protect this mansion, all alone, because Mother asked me to. When did I ever make a choice of my own? Who is this Beatrice you speak of, and what has she done for herself? Asterisk, Beatrice, 9 Golden Agato MP4 Directs.com. Is Betty's life not as barren as this book, I wonder? Is it not as empty? I have decided nothing for myself. No accomplishments or achievements. I have nothing at all. Softly, she closed the book of knowledge.